This practice is not designed to get rid of thoughts. It's not designed to suppress any negative thoughts. It's really to help you be with whatever arises, to work with how we tend to react to our thoughts, and to just sort of notice the natural movement of the mind, the arising of the thoughts and the falling away of the thoughts with the support of the breath. Attention all high vibe women and femme singer-songwriters. It is time to step into your true artistic calling so that you can make an impact in the world with your music. Hi, I'm Emma Back, and I'm the founder of She Sings Out Loud, and it is my mission in life to help heal the ancient wounding of the feminine through my own music, and by empowering you, women and femme singer-songwriters, to move away from your fear, your self-doubt, your shame, and your overwhelm to really step into your soul sound, your most authentic voice, and be able to develop that so that you can claim the stage with confidence, connect with your soulmate audience, and make an impact in the world with your music. You are watching the replay of our weekly Facebook Live show every Tuesday at 11:30 a.m. We are live in the She Sings Out Loud Sisterhood Facebook group, which you can join for free. And we also occasionally broadcast the show more publicly to the She Sings Out Loud Facebook and Instagram pages. And I do interviews with inspiring guests who are here to empower you in taking the next step with your music. And I also talk about my own journey and offer various trainings and core pieces of the She Sings Out Loud work. So I hope you will join us live in the future and enjoy this replay. Good morning, my friends. I am here today to offer you a guided meditation because it is an intense day, no matter what your political views are. And I think no matter where you are in the world, although those of us in the US are definitely directly affected, but I know that the whole world right now is kind of looking towards what will occur today. So I wanted to offer you this meditation as a way to help you stay grounded, stay connected to your heart, and to also work with not taking on the fear or the anxiety or the emotions that are around you from other people. So you can really stay in your own body and you can stay in your own power and navigate everything that's happening today and really this whole week. So without further ado, let's dive in. So I'm going to teach you today a shamatha meditation, and this comes from the Buddhist tradition, though it is definitely a breath meditation, so there's no need to have any kind of religious connection to Buddhism. It's more of a secular practice that just really works with the breath. And the word shamatha in Sanskrit means calm abiding, calm abiding. So this practice is really intended to help us calm our minds and to work with the experience of the breath in our own body as a way to kind of come back to this body when we get pulled out into the world, right? Or pulled out in a way that is unhelpful, and how we can really use the breath to kind of come back to our body and to this present moment. Now, one thing I want to say before we start that's really important is that when we're doing this practice, we are not trying to get rid of our thoughts. So I think there's a big misconception out there around meditation, and perhaps there are some practices that are designed to get rid of thoughts, although I'm not exactly sure that that's possible because thoughts happen. The thoughts are energy. They arise and they fall away. So this practice is not designed to get rid of thoughts. It's not designed to suppress any negative thoughts. It's really to help you be with whatever arises, to work with how we tend to react to our thoughts, and to just sort of notice the natural movement of the mind, the arising of the thoughts and the falling away of the thoughts with the support of the breath. So we are not trying to get rid of anything. We're not trying to express anything. We are really inviting anything that is present for us to be there, and we are acting as a witness to our own experience. That said, the intention is that this practice, especially when done over time, can bring us into a more calm state. That as we actually notice the thoughts arising and falling away, we can step away from being so caught up in them and having what many teachers call a monkey mind that just leaps from thought to thought to thought. And we can kind of just sort of notice them as this energy arising and falling away, which can help us to really settle. It can help our mind to settle, to not be caught up in so many thoughts all at the same time. And we can really focus our mind directly and choose where we are putting our awareness. So we're not trying to get rid of anything, but we can choose what we listen to, right? So when thoughts arise, we're going to be noticing them, and we can choose to kind of go into them or not. So normally in our life, we don't always have a choice. We just kind of get caught up really easily. And here, as we're sitting on the cushion or we're lying on the floor, however you want to do this practice is fine, although definitely an upright posture can sort of help to settle the mind, but sometimes lying down is also really helpful. So whatever you choose, I'll talk about posture and in a moment. So as we're kind of watching our thoughts, we get to choose if we are responding or reacting to them and how we are responding and reacting to them. So that is where this kind of calming, abiding comes into place, where we can really develop a sense of peace. And a lot of that also comes from not judging our experience or what's going on. So I've often heard people say, oh, I'm bad at meditation. Well, guess what? There is no being bad at meditation. I fully understand that you can have that experience because it is a very distinct thing to do, and it can feel a little bit uncomfortable if you haven't done this before. It can be uncomfortable to really fully be with ourselves sometimes, and we are really used to distracting ourselves from being fully present. Although I do think that as creators, as musicians, we have a leg up because our music practice is in itself, or it can be, a meditation, right? And I go into all of that. If you haven't yet done the Revolutionize Your Music Practice course with me, you can check that out at shesingsoutloud.com/practice. And we kind of talk a little bit about how your practice can become a meditation or can become really fulfilling and nurturing in this way if that's not your experience. So if our practice is that way already for us, and for those of you in particular who have done that course, there are many of you I know, we already know how to do this a little bit with our own music. And yet sometimes we don't have the music itself, which is another thing to do. It can be really another layer of challenge to fully be with ourselves. So in this practice, however you are totally works. There is no right way to be. So really important, first and foremost, that you don't judge yourself, that you just show up and you take this on and you try it, and you can try it with me today. And if you don't like it, you don't have to do it tomorrow. And the more that you kind of do this over time, the stronger your mind will get in its ability to settle. And the calm abiding and the peace that comes over time with this practice can be really, really rewarding and deeply fulfilling. Okay, and that said, you can have a wonderful experience even if this is your first time doing any meditation. So however you are today works and is invited, and we're just inviting our whole experience to be present while kind of inhibiting the habit of going in to the story so much. We're just going to kind of be with what's right there directly. And I'm going to walk you through this whole practice, okay? So one last thing I want to say before we jump in is that this is also about working with our tendency to grasp at what feels good and to reject what feels bad. So there is definitely real suffering out there in the world, and we know this acutely right now. And you may be someone who is deeply suffering in a very real way that has been really impacted over this last year, okay? And I love you, and we are all here for you in the community if that is true. And my heart just really goes out to you, and I hope this practice can support you. Okay, so that is very real, the suffering that is happening in our world. That said, we often create more suffering for ourselves, or if we're not suffering, we just create suffering because of how we are in our mind. And a lot of that stems back to this habit that we have of clinging or grasping or trying to get to what feels good and rejecting what feels bad. And that's a really natural thing to do. And I could spend a whole talk talking about that and how that relates to music, and maybe I will someday. But I just, as you do this practice, I want you to just kind of consider that. Again, try it on, see if it feels true for you. This is just something that I've discovered in my own experience. And I would love for you to just look for yourself and to see if that's true or not. You may find that that's not true for you, okay? And that's completely allowed, but just kind of see as you start to be with your mind and notice if there's that experience, especially on such an intense day with so much up in the world, if there's a tendency to kind of want to feel good and cling to what feels good and reject what feels bad. So this practice meditation can just help us to work with the suffering that that creates. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with wanting to feel good, right? And not wanting to feel bad. Of course, that's what we want to experience, and that's completely allowed. But we just want to notice where that causes a feeling of unrest, a feeling of pain in our own psyches, okay? And this practice is a way to just help ease the pain of that experience. And that's not to say we shouldn't be going after what we want, right? I am all about that. Let's go after what we want. Let's go after our dreams. Let us really do the work to rise to our full potential, right? And at the same time, in the process of doing that, we want to limit our experience of suffering if possible, or we want to kind of cut through that experience of suffering, and we want to create more joy. So this practice is a way to create more joy and to really settle all of the thoughts and the things that are not serving. Again, not trying to get rid of anything, but just allowing it all to settle so we can be fully present and we can invite more joy into our lives, even on a day like today. Okay, let's begin. So the first thing we want to do is get into a really great posture, because that is going to help us settle the mind. So when our body is uncomfortable, then it is really hard for our mind to settle. Okay, now that said, it is something to work with. If we're just kind of feeling not great in our body, we can bring that to our practice and work with it. But there is some postures that can really support us to allow our mind to settle. So as I said before, if you feel more comfortable lying down, I'm going to invite you to do that. The only issue with that is there may be a tendency to kind of blank out or to fall asleep. So we want to have some level of alertness. So if you're at all feeling sleepy today, then maybe lying down is not the best way to go. But if you are feeling extra anxious and high energy, then lying down may be the perfect thing to help you just kind of settle. And then if you start to get sleepy, you might want to sit up. So you're welcome to lie down. If you lie down, I recommend that you put a book under your head so that your spine can be lengthened and your head's not tilted back to the floor, and that you put your knees up so that your spine can fully release into the floor. Okay, when our legs are down, we have this natural kind of concave movement to the spine, and when we put our knees up, it kind of flattens the back a little bit, which can help us to kind of, again, calm and release into the earth. So that's one option. The other option, and the more highly recommended option, is to sit up. And you could be in a chair, or you could be, as I am, I'm cross-legged, kind of Native American style. We don't need to do any full lotus or anything like that, just a natural, easy, cross-legged posture with, our buttocks on the floor, feeling our tailbone. Maybe you're on a cushion, would be probably supportive, a little cushion, but really feeling that whatever seat you have, you can really drop your tailbone down so you have a good supportive experience of being on the earth. And then you can take your hands and you can place them wherever they just fall naturally, on your thighs or on your knees. And this is a point of grounding, to really put the palms down. So again, this is the shamatha tradition that comes from a Buddhist tradition. So this is one posture. There are also sometimes hands can be held like this or like this. There's different traditions. This one we do hands down because that's a feeling of that palm on the leg grounding us. Okay, so I'm going to just invite you to try that on and see if that works for you. So putting our hands, our palms down on our legs, and then letting our arms just fall really naturally. and we want to have a very upright spine, but we don't want to be pulling ourselves too far up because this actually throws us out of alignment. So there's a natural balance of settling down into the earth through our sit bones, and then feeling that we are lengthening up from the earth, lengthening our spine all the way out the top of the head, all the way out, like there was a little string pulling you up. So you're supported by the earth to be upright. And then we can have the mouth slightly open, the jaw dropped, so it's relaxed. We don't want to clench the jaw if that's comfortable. You can have the tip of your tongue on the bottom teeth. Again, this is a way that we just actually kind of open the whole mouth and even the whole throat a little bit for relaxation. And in this tradition, we actually keep our eyes open because there is an intention to be able to be with whatever is arising, both internally and externally, and to see if we can just be in the world and not get thrown by what's happening. So when we close our eyes as a way of we're really going deeply within and we're sort of turning off the outside world. And if you really are struggling to be present with yourself, that might be a good idea for a moment. But the intention is that we can actually find this calm abiding, even in the chaos or anything that's happening in our world. Okay? And we practice that by having the eyes open. Let me take a little sip of water. Okay, so that's our posture. Next, we're just going to begin to follow our breath. Inhaling and exhaling. Oh, I need to say one more thing about the eyes open. So in order to not get too distracted, I'm going to be looking right at the camera to kind of be present with you. I may drop my eyes at some point, but for you, you want to have the gaze slightly down. So eyes open, but maybe about 3 to 6 feet in front of you, your gaze on the floor, so that you are working to kind of dim the stimulus of looking at everything while still practicing this sense of being in the world with this calm abiding. Okay, so gaze is slightly down. That said, I'll probably keep my eyes up at you. So taking some nice deep breaths. You can exhale deeply into the earth, letting your energy drop down into the lower parts of the body and into the earth. Each exhale, letting yourself ground. Your inhale can have this sense of expanding in all directions. So we expand on the inhale and we exhale to ground, connecting into the earth. You can begin to find the natural rhythm of your breath, just noticing what it feels like to breathe in and breathe out, feeling the sensation of the air tickling your nostrils as it exits, or your mouth. You can breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, which can be a nice way to start to help us to ground. Or you can just breathe in and out of your nose. We're going to bring our awareness to the exhale, letting the inhale happen naturally. But each exhale, you can just bring your awareness and your noticing of what that feels like as the breath goes out through your whole body, through your torso. What is that like? Just noticing. Notice that perhaps there's a little space at the end of the breath. So we exhale. And there's a slight pause before the inhale happens naturally. And that end of the exhale and that space afterwards is where we can just begin to rest our mind. Let's see if we could count 10 breaths in this way. 10 exhales. If your mind wanders, just come back to the counting. And we're just going to count 10 breaths with that experience of putting our awareness on the exhale and noticing what that's like and the space after the exhale. So we'll do 10 of those. Again, if your mind wanders, just bring it back to the counting and to the experience of the exhale. There's nothing wrong if the mind wanders. Just as soon as you notice, you can bring it back. That is in your power. Okay, that was 10. So now we're just going to continue and we're going to look a little bit more at our thoughts without going into the story. We're just going to allow ourselves to notice them. So we're going to count 10 more breaths. And as thoughts arise, we can just label that thinking. We can just notice, oh, look, there's a thought, thinking, and we can return to the experience of that exhale and return to our counting. At any point, if you want to drop the counting, you can, but especially if this is new for you, it can be helpful to bring your mind back with a clear 1 or 5, wherever you are in your counting process. Okay, if you completely forgot, you might want to start back at 1 and then go to 10. So when the thought arises, we're just going to notice thinking. Now, when I say thoughts, we want to label thinking for the strong thoughts. Sometimes there's so many thoughts, and if we just sat here and went thinking, that might not be so helpful, right? We might actually stir up more anxiety. I would, at least if I did that to myself. So we can just label the strong thought thinking. If you begin to go into the story of the thought, the moment that you notice you've gone off is when you can label thinking and come back to count the breath and to notice the exhale and put your awareness on the exhale. So again, we're not trying to get rid of thoughts. Thoughts are not bad. We are just wanting to be as present with our experience of breathing and of being here as possible. And we want to inhibit the habit of going into the thoughts and creating more thoughts by going into them, especially if it's a big story that we go off on. So again, we'll just breathe and we'll notice a thought arise and we'll label thinking and we'll come back to the thought. And we'll do 10 of these. Attention is on the exhale and feeling the space at the end of the exhale, allowing the inhale to happen naturally. When you've noticed that you've gone off and away from the breath and away from this present moment, You can label thinking and come back to the breath. Okay, that was 10 on my count. So now we're going to just deepen this and do another round. And as well as thoughts arising, you can notice if emotions arise. Sometimes emotions and thoughts come together, and sometimes they're just a feeling of a sudden wave of energy. Like when it's anxiety for me, I feel it in my chest. I feel this wave of something happening, right? Or if it's fear, or if it's excitement, it's usually a little more in my belly. So you can just kind of notice where that sensation of this wave of emotion or energy is in your body and where that's coming from. And again, when that comes, you're just going to acknowledge it with love and compassion. You're going to inhibit the habit of going into the story and creating thoughts out of it, and just see if you can connect to the raw, pure energy of that arising. And then you can label thinking, or if thinking feels a little harsh in that moment because maybe there wasn't thoughts, you can just acknowledge and go, yep, I hear you, and come back to the thoughts. So, yep, I hear you, thinking, or you could say emotion, energy, whatever word is powerful for you to just label it as an experience, and then come back to the breath, come back to counting, come back to that exhale as a way to ground yourself, noticing the space at the end of the breath and the counting. And again, you can drop the counting if you just want to connect to the pure energy of the breath and the experience. If the counting helps you to settle your mind, you can stick with the counting. So we'll do another round of 10 like that. When thoughts arise or when there's a wave of emotion or energy, just connect to the sensation and label it thinking or emotion, and come back to the breath, grounding yourself with the exhale, bringing your awareness to the feeling of the breath moving out of your body into the space after the exhale, and then letting the inhale happen naturally, and come back to counting if that supports you. Okay, so you can do this ongoingly. You could set a timer for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes. I would recommend only 5 or 10 if you're brand new to this. No need to push ourselves to do more because that can feel like a very long time when we're sitting with ourselves. And you can also do it throughout your day. Okay, any moment where there's a strong, intense emotion or a feeling or a strong thought of negativity as well. And you could just count 10 breaths to ground yourself, to calm your mind, not judging the thoughts, but allowing yourself to just come back to this experience of being here and being alive. And then if you feel inspired, you could, whisper whatever prayer or hope that you have for yourself, for your loved ones, and for the world on this day. And I will be with you doing all of that throughout my day today. And I wish you a beautiful day. I wish you a day of being able to be with whatever arises, to free yourself from any judgment you might have for yourself and others in this challenging time and in those emotions as they arise. And I just wish you a sense of peace and ability to ground yourself. And may we all just put more love and prayer and hope out into the world. And may we all be able to today also use our own creativity as a source for inspiration and healing for ourselves and for others. So many blessings, and I will see you on the other side. And let's just keep sending out some prayers for our world and keep working with grounding ourselves and staying calm and doing whatever we need to just really take care of ourselves and our loved ones and our world. Many blessings.